the show. Now that the book's been edited, everything's been Googled, we put together the perfect manuscript to put out there in the world. Coming up on launch, what preparations are being made? How do you go about marketing and letting the world know that this book exists?
Yeah, so our marketing work starts really early on. It starts with the pre-order campaign, which starts with a reveal of the cover. It's a cover reveal campaign, and the first week of pre-orders are really important to us and really help us to understand how a book is going to do in the marketplace. Then there's usually the book will remain on pre-order on our website, and what that usually means for our viewers or readers, listeners, what that means is there's bonuses. Like you just get some cool stuff when you pre-order the book, and it's really helpful for us as an indie press because it helps to offset the printing costs of the book. After that, it's going to be 4 or 5 months. It's going to go through its sort of print process. You're going to get pass-through pages and stuff like that. And then I'll go to the printer, and then it will be made into like a real live book, which is kind of a terrifying feeling for me. I don't know. This is like the first really big book that we've made. I'm just like sort of scared at how much room it's going to take up in a warehouse. Really weird things like that. And what we will do, hopefully imagining a time where we can all be together, is Payal will start her small sort of tour of the US, going to a lot of indie bookstores, hopefully schools, meeting with kids, and talking about her book, reading parts of her book. While she finishes drafting, book 2, and starts writing book 3, and then the next series that I'm going to buy, no big deal. No pressure. But, I think we are planning some really exciting marketing stuff to go along with our release campaign or the time leading up to the culmination of the book. And if we're in a virtual time, then I think we'll do as much as we can virtually. We'll probably do some virtual bookstore readings, see if we can get to schools, because I think no matter what, this book is going to be out there, and we want the world to see it and hear it and love it.
Well, here is my last question about the book, because then we got to talk flying saucers and ghosts. The esteemed audience looks forward to it. And if they don't, I do. So either way. But I always try to do this show as so if I were going to be on a podcast, what would I want someone to ask me? And I'd want somebody to give me a spot to talk about any aspect of the book that hasn't yet come up. So what's a question that I haven't asked you that you'd like to be asked about the book or about publishing in general? And then please proceed to answer it. And we'll start with, let's say, Payal.
Oh, my. Oh, if either one of you have a question in mind, jump in.
Nope, this you may jump on this bullet. You got to take it.
Okay. Okay. I think for me, we did touch upon this, but I think the question has always been Astranthia and it being this blended sort of world. And the fact that, I think the question would be what I want a reader to take out of this book. And that would be, I want all kids, I hope, and I want all kids of all cultures and races and nationalities to read this book, because it is a universal book. It's a book with themes that every kid can relate to. It's not an Indian book with an Indian character, with an Indian fantasy that will only speak to an Indian reader. I think that's unfortunately a rhetoric that is just assumed when it comes to books with, someone that doesn't look like you on the cover. I want to say that I grew up reading books with white characters and Western characters. I love reading books with Asian characters and African characters, and I love them. I feel like they move me because they're human stories. And for any parent out there who's listening to this podcast, any kid, any teacher, any librarian. It is important to include diverse books in your catalog for your kids because of that very reason, to show that diversity is everywhere. You're different from your own neighbor, even if you look the same way. You've grown up differently, you have different experiences in the same way that you have different experiences from someone who has lived, 7 seas across. But that human feeling is completely relatable and very universal. So whether you are any culture or any race or any nationality, if you love reading adventure and you love middle grade, you will enjoy this book and it will speak to you.
Well done. That's going to be a tough act to follow. Amy, have you got one?
Oh, no.
Did you think they'd forget you?
No, I was hoping you would go next. So I would say, from an editorial perspective, a question that I think a lot of the time I wish I were asked is, how hard is it to get published? Which is like kind of a big question and a hard question to answer. And I think that the answer to that question is, it's impossible to know how hard it's going to be. It's impossible to know how many rounds of edits you're going to need, because all of it falls into the category of right place and right time, getting the right person to read your book. If you look at Payal's work, so much of it comes down to finding the right person to read it. And, all the other people who read it loved it. It's not that people didn't love it, but so much of it comes down to luck and also finding the right person who really understands it. And even then, we took a year, right, of editing and revising and getting it to another place. And I think that anyone out there who's writing right now should remember that it's not just about talent, and it's not just about getting the story right. It's also a huge process, and going through that process can be really difficult and really hard. But if you don't give up, you could be on this podcast next year.
And all your dreams will have come true.
And all of your dreams will come true.
Most of them.
Sailaja, there can be no more stalling. The spotlight is on you.
I know, that's a little terrifying. I guess the question I wish you had asked me about publishing or being an indie publisher is, how can people support you? And I think the best way to support us is to, one, follow us on social media and regularly share our posts in your feed with your friends, with a relative, whatever it might be. That truly does help, and it costs you nothing. The second way you can support us is when you do want to buy our books, pre-order them early, knowing that they might take 6 months to get to you, but appreciating that you're supporting a small indie press, and buying your books direct from us. That is always incredibly helpful and helps us to keep more profit in our pocket. And then finally, make sure you shop at your independent bookstore and tell them about us. Because that way, once they find out about us, then they're able to buy their books directly from us. And that's always a really wonderful thing.